As Nigerians continue to rule the poor state of power supply in the country, the federal government explains the power supply chain is a process-driven mandate, which will take a while. Today, our searchlight turns on the power transmission arm of Nigeria's power sector. Where exactly are we in the roadmap towards a steady and uninterrupted power supply? It's question time. Welcome to the show. I'm Benga Ashuru. With a transmission capacity of 7,000 megawatts, can the federal government bridge the yawning gap of 21,000 megawatts before the deadline of 2035? In finding answers to these and many more questions, we had a chat with the Managing Director of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Dr. Usman Gaur Mohammed. Join us in this interview.
That report actually is a report that was done by TCN on behalf of the federal government. And the consultant that carried out that report is called Fitchner. It look at our grid and look at our plan to expand the grid. And the Fitchner report actually look at the various level of voltage that we can expand the grid and look at which one is more cost effective. They look at 500 kV, at expansion at 500 kV. They look at 700 kV, and the advice is that we should concentrate at the 330 kV that we have now. So our expansion is at 330 kV now. And also they look at all the generation plans that we have, and they come up with the least cost generation plan, which is the 20-year master plan that you're talking about. If you look at the master plan, we are already implementing the master plan. And that is why we have been able to raise about $1.57 billion so far.
Let's get it clear. You said you've been able to raise $1.7 million.
$1.57 billion.
$1.57 billion. Yes. From where?
We have $486 million, which is coming from the World Bank. We have 200 million, and that $486 million is actually putting transmission and transformation capacity all over the country. It's targeting brownfield project, meaning existing substations and existing lines. That project is targeting the whole over the country. And our objective is to put N-1 capacity in the existing substations. Let me explain N-1. N-1 means that if one transformer goes out as a result of accident or disaster or anything, it does not affect the supply of the people that that substation is supposed to feed. Example of that N-1 is what happened in two places in recent times. In Jos, we had a problem accident where one of our transformers got burnt. It didn't affect the supply of the people in Jos because we have N-1 capacity there. In Alagbon, not too long ago, we also had an accident there, and at the same time, that did not affect the supply of the people in supplying Alagbon. So this is what we are doing.
When you talk of the procurement system, that's usually the bottleneck aspect that usually could determine or redetermine the time frame of any project. So from your experience now, because we've had a lot of complaints in the past about the bottleneck being an unpleasant bottlenecks in fast-tracking any project. What's your experience about the procurement system so far?
It's true. Procurement, especially for donor-funded projects, has not been very palatable, especially in Nigeria. But the good thing is that this is the area of my strength, and this is what I've been doing in a long time. What we have done to overcome some of those problems of procurement is that we have reviewed our capacity and the way we implement projects, and we have identified the weaknesses that we have before. One of the key weaknesses that we have been having before is that it takes a long time to prepare some of those projects. That is, to prepare a donor-funded project takes about 1 year. And also to do the procurement takes about 1 year. So what we have agreed with all those donors is that we have to do advanced procurement. And they agree. So if you look at the one that I told you about, the World Bank, $486 million, the project was approved in February. But we have almost done almost half of the project. Is almost the procurement is coming at the final stage of the procurement, because we've already started it a long time ago. So that's what area that we've done. The second thing that
permit me to come in here. Don't you think that you are encountering this problem of procurement because the transmission company of Nigeria deviated from the power sector roadmap, which is essentially private sector driven? Because if the private investors were the ones investing in the transmission arm, they wouldn't need to go through the needle-eye procurement process.
I think there's this thinking that if everything goes to private sector, it's just like as if the thing has been, it has been fixed. If you look
are you faulting the power sector reform?
No, if you look at, I am not faulting the power sector reform, but it's not just that everything goes immediately, I mean, it goes to private sector, it goes. You have to also follow the normal process.
But I think the argument is based on the empirical evidence.
No, I just want to give...
In the past, government had failed in handling the power sector in Nigeria. So a new school of thought came that if the key players are private investors, they would be able to take the credit or failure for this. But government, nobody takes the credit of it. It's just left open.
I think the problem is the problem of leadership. Because if you look at from the time we came into now, we have expanded transmission from 5,500 to 7,124 when it was last simulated in December. And we have shifted transmission from being the weakest link to actually the strongest link in the power sector now. And you can also see that we are able to achieve frequency control of 49.5 and 50.5, which has not been achieved in the last 20 years. So this is about leadership. And I also want to tell
you are coming with a wealth of experience, of a background from the African Development Bank. So that must have given you a wealth of exposure on how power supply in the country should be fixed. So now, looking at what you met on the ground now, what are those weak links? What are those loopholes? What are those pitfalls you've discovered in our power sector, in our power supply chain?
Yeah, if you look at what is happening now, generation has gone very far, and generation is expanding. Transmission is expanding. If you look at almost every 2 weeks, we are commissioning transformers. We have raised the morale of staff. TCN staff are installing transformers all over the country. We have installed at least, in the last count, about 20 transformers through in-house TCN engineers. They are actually building a substation in Elisha in Lagos. TCN engineers are building a substation in Elisha by themselves. And that substation is almost 90% complete. So the game is moving on the side of transmission and generation. I think the weakest link now is the distribution.